Hail, hail, the Celtic Star here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? We're back and we're doing a match preview live, so thanks to everyone that's joining us live and loud for this one. Fist bumps on arrival. And I'm back from a wee bit of a hiatus. You know, we had the Scottish Cup semi-final, which I had to catch in sunny Dunoon, so fist bumps to any of you that went away for Easter or did anything with the family, but we've been firmly back in the chair this week. A bit of a weird week. We're on a Friday. It definitely feels body clockwise to me like a Wednesday, just the way everything is panned out this week as well. And I'm just off the back of listening to the Brendan Rodgers pre-match press conference, and what a listen it was this week, by the way, guys. We won't be covering it in the game preview today like we sometimes do, but it was a great listen. We had squad confirmation essentially that there's no news. Schmeichel's not returned. No one else is out. Yang is still not available. And I think there might have been another kind of minor one, but essentially we've got the expected squad available for this one. But a lot of the stuff Brendan was choosing to say in the second half of the press conference around like the job, progression we've had this year, status of the club, future ambitions, that sort of thing, was all very much like, you know, cards on the table, heart on the sleeve, like loves being here, loves the extra dimension of being a supporter in charge and knowing what it means to the club, to the fans, and really try to push the club on to maximize itself. So really enjoyed it personally, got me hyped for what is going to be the title party at Tannadice. I'm not having any of this tedious Tannadice chat that has been kind of thrown out there this week. And I've caught this, I don't know who ran that headline or who ran the story, I've forgotten now, but it is just absolutely showing yourself up, isn't it? Doing stuff like that. Like that's the most funny part about it all for me. But hail to you all. And yeah, let me know what you thought about the semi-final. We never did a breakdown for it, but we did a preview. And you know, I think I nailed the score prediction. I'm pretty sure I nailed it. I've not went back to double check, but I'm pretty sure we nailed it. I didn't expect Eden Forest to start, and that's something that will flavour the live stream today as we go to preview the game. We're going to do score predictions, man the match shouts, and of course, as always, I've been finishing these shows off with a wee bit of the fantasy football stuff that I'm kind of running out with for the final 5 minutes. But yeah, it's going to be a big one. And Tannadice is normally, it's honestly for me growing up, like I always remember the early 2000s. Tannadice was always a game, especially towards the end of the season post split, because Dundee United were normally up and in amongst it. It was always a game that had something going on in it, you know, even if it was like a tight title race, it might have been maybe not just for us, but for them, a very important fixture if you were away to Dundee United. So, yeah, a lot of good nostalgia, a good little bit of throwback Thursdays and all that kind of stuff coming into this one. And of course, until earlier this year, Brendan had never been to Tannadice, I think it was. He mentioned that in the press conference. It may have been last year, although I think it is this year. And yeah, what a great venue, what a great match. And I'm not too sure where to start with first and foremost, because the cup final did throw up. You know, we've had the return of Taylor, we've had the return of Scales, we've had so much going on in the squad over the last week or so. And normally when I'm taking time away, I'm crossing my fingers that nothing monumental happens. But the return of Scaldini, the return of GT, there is tons of meat on the bones to go over on this one. I don't even know where to start even with that. But as we look at the tactics board, as we look at the depth, expected choices in the squad, do you know, as I was looking at the last time that we've played Dundee United and stuff, I think, you know, I mentioned them for the semi-final. I hadn't realised about the limited bench capacity in the cup versus the league. So my estimations of Kenny's potential were way off, and happy to eat humble pie on that, of course. But back to league duty, I think he's in the picture to be discussed, but of course, no one's expecting him to get a start here. But like I mentioned, the return of Scaldini and the lap of honour potentially, or the, I don't know, the final audition in the contract negotiation stage, perhaps. Let's see your thoughts and feelings on that with Taylor. Has been brilliant to see. Now, again, like I'm one of Taylor's biggest fans, and it was great because right before he got back, you know, when he came off the bench against, who was it, Kilmarnock, before then coming back in, the number one thing we were highlighting, we were trying to remind everyone before the match, you know, was Taylor and his ability to be our best attacking midfielder, essentially. So we often joke on the channel, you know, that Brendan's a subscriber. I think he might be. I think maybe somebody is in there. But you know, it felt like it very much was on par with everything we expected to see from him, because when you've, and again, the exact same explanation we gave coming into the match, when you've got a team that's going to bank in and keep the, you know, keep the two lines tight, you need a wild card, you need a rule breaker, you need someone to come in and just ask different questions, keep people on the swivel, and then when we are moving the ball as sharply and as quickly as we can, more chaos happens, more opportunities open up, and Taylor is so well versed at that role. He is a master at it, and when we've been chatting about Taylor's exit, it is like it has to go somewhere that plays him that way or accommodates him to some extent, because that is like his strengths. His strengths is actually operating in and around this area as an overload, as an extra person, not being the attacking midfielder like Hatate does, or previously guys like O'Reilly have done. But it's that being that extra one, that one that's got just the ability to pop up in different spots and whatever. So regardless of what happens with Taylor, I think he plays this game, because if he doesn't sign on, and I know the rumors are saying like it's likely to happen now, and if it does, brilliant. We're all about keeping the squad as high quality as possible, and I think Taylor, for so many good reasons, alongside Tierney, is pretty much the best left back department I think we could put together within reason, and that's without the fortune of getting lucky in the transfer market and unearthing the next guy that ends up at one of the top 5 clubs in the world or something like that. So yeah, I like that move if it goes through, and I think regardless of contract situation, if it is going to get signed on now, then we know we're certainly not signing Schlupp, and then he's just backup, he's just cover if anything. But also because this is potentially, and Nicky Do here, it's quite arrogant saying it's a title party, but it's going to be, it's the St Johnstone thing. Like, they scored in, what was it, the 4th minute? And it was just such an off day. And the standard that Celtic have set, like, I just think everything is just clicking into gear now, because what was missing was this extra Taylor element. Because this extra Taylor element doesn't just give Taylor a good match and then we get more out of left back, but it's the domino effect that it gives to Hatate. You just see him being that little bit better, when he's got Taylor alongside him. Number one, because of the synergy, the amount of minutes these two guys have clocked up together is absolutely massive. But also McGregor, because quite often Taylor, we use the expression hold hands here, but it essentially does come in and hold hands at times with McGregor. And that's kind of the limit of what we've seen Schlupp do in this role when he was trying to do the Taylor tribute act. But Taylor can do that. And then that gives McGregor a bit more confidence, a bit more freedom to roam with the ball. And McGregor's strength is breaking the lines, however you want to see that, is running or passing, So seeing him doing that from deep is always exciting, is always effective, and we want to see him do more of that. And again, Taylor has a huge domino effect. So I think without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to be Taylor in at left back. Now, the interesting thing about this, right, is of course Scaldini. We're big Scales fans here as well as Taylor, but Trusty, is no schmo himself. He's had a great season, and for all intents and purposes is seen somewhat unmovable in that centre-back partnership alongside Cam and Carter-Vickers, despite really good periods of form for Scales previously. And, so there's nothing to suggest that it's definitely going to be Scales. So for me, it really comes down to the opposition. I think we've all quite clearly seen, not that Scales is super amazing at it, but the number one thing we always try and highlight on this channel when we're chatting about the centre-back developments and whatever, is Scales does give you a lot. Like, he gives you a lot. And to get someone that does everything he does, but better, like markedly better, is a high quality player. And it's not that we shouldn't want one of them or whatever, but it's realizing what we're talking about here, because he's strong in 1v1s for the most part, left-footed, of course, got a good range of passing. And, it's often forgotten in this kind of recent time, but you're maybe seeing it as of the semi-final, but the amount of balls he used to just try and zip right down the pipe into someone like Kyogo that never really came off sometimes, and it's because he's not like world class. He's obviously very good. We're big fans of him. He makes passes happen still in this area, don't get me wrong, but it's just that ability as well to confidently get across the halfway line and not look, too out of your depth, too uncomfortable, as well as still making good decisions and all the rest of it. And again, the minutes that they've clocked up together, Scales, Hatate, and Taylor, I think that was one of the main differences that we've seen in the St Johnstone game, in the Kilmarnock match, and in this second half, and all that kind of stuff. But Trusty isn't terrible at these things as well, and I think the manager's main decision for these two is just going to be who they're up against, really, at this point. Although I do believe Scales feels like he's got the jersey back, but we've just seen, we've seen periods like this before where they do just share the job for the most part. But if you've seen a little bit of the training footage that came out, Scales was doing some keepy ups outside of the boot with the right and stuff like that. So I suspect it is going to be Scales, but we'll come on to talk about Dundee United, and that might clear it up a little bit. Carter Vickers, of course, Alistair Johnson, and the goalkeeper, all very much picked himself. Midfield, again, I think is going to be quite similar to what we've seen in recent times, because there's only one game a week now, and this is like get the job done season. I don't think he's going to stray too much away from McGregor, Hatate, and Engels. And like we were just chatting about with the defence, if it is going to be Scales, Taylor, and Hatate on this left-hand side, there's just so much control that comes from here. And again, we'll see with the forward line that how the rest of the left-hand side develops. But games like this, especially away from home, is where we see the best of McGregor, and I think is a good opportunity for Engels to really get some more successful matches under his belt, let's say. Because, yeah, he's one man of the matches. Yeah, he's got a decent enough goals to game ratio and everything else. But we know as fans, like, we want to see him win a game. You know, we want to see him really, like we've seen Hatate in the semi-final, and even in the last couple of matches in general. He has been the difference maker. He's not always been like the guy that gets the goal or the assist in most of the occasions. He does, of course, still do that. But Engels hasn't really had a game like that in a little while. And this would be a big one as well, a big away match to go and put his name on it. And I think the manager is going to give him the opportunity to do that. We're not going to see anything wacky like McKibben or Bernardo. Although it must be said, Rodgers has played the three wee guys before, you know, McGregor, Hatate, and McKibben. And he has seemed to fancy that as an option on occasion. But I think that's more of a squad management thing when the fixture list has been a bit heavier. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, because it's one game a week, it's not going to be too much different. It's not going to be different at all from this, is it? What's always interesting to see is just how high Hatate goes or how high Engels goes when we're off the ball. That's the main thing. That kind of gives you a wee peek behind the curtain on the manager's instructions coming into the game in terms of where they see our strengths and their weaknesses kind of matching up best, because that's essentially what the game is when you're kind of picking what one does what, and you're kind of hovering it around side there. Kenny made his game that kind of got us all like, oh, Kenny could do something against Dundee United. So could that happen twice? I wouldn't rule it out, because I don't think we're going to see a change to the front line. I don't think Kuhn's going to start this one, and I don't think Jota's going to start this one either. I think there's a really significant chance it's going to be Dyson, Ida, and Forrest again, very similarly to the semi-final for it. Brendan Rodgers was very endearing, as always. Like, there's no reason for him ever not to be, about James Forrest and his career and his legacy that he's building and everything else. And I think this game, we're talking about Engels or Hatate having their name over the match, being the match winner. But this is a game that the manager maybe has a wee bit of heart over head with, and plays Forrest in it to give him his goal, which seals the record, brings the title party alive in the match, potentially if it's early on, and it can get subbed off later on with a round of applause. I could see that happening quite easily, especially as well with Ida kind of having a bit of a breakthrough moment with, you know, on field, off the field stuff, getting the goal as well. And again, an away match that he could be quite useful for. And again, talking about left-hand side being fully optimized, Daizen Maeda, who's played 3/4, 80% of the season out here with this kind of getting the band back together kind of vibe on the left. It feels like this is where, you know, we could just be dominating the game, cutting them open for fun. And if we've got Ida, Forrest has just got a nose for it. You know, he just knows where to be in the right place at the right time, alongside Engels and McGregor, with Alistair Johnson as well. Like, this feels like the sort of team that we're probably going to run with to go to Tannadice personally. Now, I think personally, like, if you do have an incentive, for whatever the reason might be, to get Forrest's goal, and by the way, I see the chat's firing away. Fist bumps to you all, and I'll bring some chat comments up in a second. But I think the best chance of getting Forrest a goal in this one would be from the bench. I would personally revert back to the kind of the fast three, as it were, and go with Jota, Dyson, and Kuhn. And then later on in the game, you bring Forrest on with the big standing ovation. The game's already won. We're going up the gears anyway still. And then he can, you know, kind of come alive. He's very good at punishing teams from the bench, I would say. And I think Kuhn, like, as well, like, for form and all the rest of it to one side, right? But Kuhn was, like, in a lot of people's minds, home and hosed as player of the season by November or something like that. Maybe even December. Probably was December. And if this is like title party, if this is like getting the job done, getting it over the line, I know Jota's kind of new back in town or whatever, right? But Kuhn has played as big of a role in getting us to where we are this season as anyone else that's on the screen right now. So regardless of like a little bit of form or whatever, because I think he still looked tidy when he's came on. It's just he's not been like we mentioned earlier, like grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck and like doing his thing that he does, but hitting the back of the net or finding the back post tap in with a cross or whatever it might be. But again, I could see him starting a game like this because the number one thing we know about Dundee United coming into this, and we'll put the Dundee United expected team on screen, and then we'll do, or I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put on screen the teams that we've had play Dundee United in the last couple of occasions. So this is the team we selected to play them last time, which was at Paradise the day after Valentine's. It was one of the Schlupp games that he started, and it was the 3 wee guys in midfield with Ida through the middle. It must be said, Yang's not available for this one. So that does kind of lean more again into the Ida camp, doesn't it? Johnny Kenny off the bench, like we mentioned. Daisen Maeda rotated on this one. And that was in amongst the Bayern 2 legs here, as you can see on the right. If we scroll back to find the next time we played Dundee United, it's in January. Felt like we went through a period where every other game was against a team called Dundee. And again, he's went for McCowan again, but again, we're rotating due to fixture management, of course. Taylor played phenomenally. This is again is at home, right enough. Ida again has played this one. If we scroll back to the time before that, it's at Tannadice, and it's a 0-0 draw. And I think there was a game where, and we'll talk about Dundee United again in a second, but there was a game where their left-hand side, Middleton and Ferry, were quite obviously like the attacking outlet. And I can't remember if this was this game because they didn't look too half bad. We had Welsh in the game who played actually pretty well alongside Scales who absolutely ran it. And again, the 3 wee guy midfield. Furuhashi played this one with Yang and Maeda. That was the 22nd of December. How far back do we need to go for our game previous to that? Would it have been this season? Probably not. They're probably been last season. So can I see, did we have them last season and did we go to Tannadice late in the season? My memory escapes me right now. But this looks like last season with Atletico. No. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we played them last year. Yeah, so it was only this year, of course. Yeah, they've just came up all the way back here. This might have, no, Real Madrid. Yeah, that was Ange. Sorted. So that's the teams that we've had the last couple of times. Funny to see Ida featuring so often and maybe McCowan as well. So interesting little details here. This is the Celtic projected 11 by friend of the channel McBride Ace, which is, I think, the exact same as what we've just went through there. I'm a wee bit more 50-50 on Forrest and Kuhn, but I think the Ida element tips the scale on that one. This is the Dundee United expected team. So I'll have this sitting on screen for a wee second and I'll catch up with the chat and catch a wee breath. Thanks to everyone that's joining us live, by the way. There's a bunch of you here. Love to see it. The chat has been absolutely ripping, guys. Brilliant to see. Good to see you. Good to see you. Any Dundee United? Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that River in the Sea because that's the one thing that I think we've seen from Jim Goodwin, St Mirren, Aberdeen, and Dundee United teams against Celtic is they just give us the pitch, you know. Yeah, well, so this is how their team is shaping up. Strange Love the Doctor. We'll have a wee glance over anyone that might be absent, any noticeable. Yeah, just got promoted. Yeah, I thought that, but I just wanted to double check. So normally when I assume I get it wrong, so just always double check. Danny Graham, what's the boy's name? The centre back is out for a further 2 weeks. No more news on that. Svelj is out. He was like kicking lumps out of us last time. He was a bit of a hatchet, Rubizic-esque, if you like. So he's not out. He's out for this one. The Goodwin, yeah. So he's going to go probably back. Oh no, Svelj is here. I can't find any more news than it being a hip injury that kept Svelj out for the last 2 games, but he was described as a doubt, which is 2 weeks ago. Should be back this weekend. Apologies. United normally play a blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so Svelj kind of drops in, doesn't he? Middleton here displayed on the right. If it's anything like last time, I think he's going to, I think he'll side up. I don't know if that Trapanowski's too attacking. That looks Stevenson. Yeah. So we'll put them on the tactics board in a second. But yeah, I think this is going to be a bit of a one. Actually, I can just do that on our screen now where you're looking at this. And it'll be like, here we go. Here's one we made earlier. So in goals are going for Jack Walton, who I think has been pretty good this year, by the way, for a clean sheet record goal concession. I think, like, although we're kind of memeing them a bit that they're just going to give us the pitch and bank up and like 5 men in the box, Dundee United have been solid defensively, and that's like a good thing in the league for the most part. So kudos to them. As you can see, the guys in yellow are guys that I play in fantasy football sometimes, so I kind of see bits and bobs of how they do. Adeboyega and Ferry are both Irish, actually, and they've both been pretty decent. for the most part. I think Ferry takes a bunch of set pieces, free kicks and corners and stuff. And as we seen last time, they kind of leaned on this side of the pitch. So it does say Trapinowski. I'll just put him here because the Dundee United expert should have it right. But Trapinowski, he came off the bench before, has been a bit of a live wire. Can't quite fit all of his name on the board. Ross Docherty. Again, I think he's going to do a similar job to what we see a lot of centre mids in this league do, and that's just protected defence, be busy. That Savelge is going to be essentially another centre back and be a little booter, like just kick you all over the shop. Middleton on the other side here. Again, they'll fancy him as an attacking outlet. So if the ball turns over, he's always the one they're going to look to catch into space. And Lucas Stevenson has been like a busy player whenever we've played him before. I don't really see him being this high other than to try and tackle or just to try and make McGregor's life a little bit more difficult. I don't see him as being like an attacking player for them. And then Sam Dalby, of course, grabbing the headlines and almost having a Majowski-esque fan club for Celtic should maybe look at him. But I think he's on loan from Wrexham, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's something we should be going after. But yeah, it's displayed as a 4-4-2, but I see it being much more of a 5-4-1 probably. Something like that. So yeah, we're just going to have the majority of the pitch. Now, last time, like, with this Trapinowski and Ferry, because they would push Svelge in, you need to obviously shuffle guys across a little bit. So I would just give a bit more coverage for someone like Ferry to kind of get out here a little bit more with Middleton. I forget which match it was. It might have been the 0-0, but in any case, if Trapinowski's on the left, he'll be doing this here. And because they're at home, and with Taylor, they know Taylor's not going to be that wide necessarily, which is where, like, I did hold the door open for Trusty earlier, because if this is a situation where they do play Middleton on this side, as well as having this guy here on the left, and they kind of do that lean across that they do, if the ball does get turned over in these areas here, if Taylor is like up in the nosebleeds, this Middleton has got a 1v1 with Scales and a lot of grass to run into. And is that Scales' strength, or is that Trusty's strength? And, is that something the manager's going to weigh up and consider coming into this? Is that a priority situation to watch out for? Or is that something where Scales isn't terrible at this? He can do it. He's very effective. He's very good at knocking the ball out for throw-ins and stuff like that in these types of situations. And if he has to make a foul, he does. He's very good at fouling people in the time of need and making sure something happens. So between him and obviously Vickers on the recovery as well, there's potentially someone like McGregor or Hatate, if they're not too far away from the ball, like depending on where he's coming from. Like, you could probably, I've got no real worries with Scales here, but that, along with somebody like Dalby, maybe in support, causing some problems, it's maybe a consideration for the first team staff, just in case it is kind of two-sided here, because before with Dundee United, it's been quite one-sided, where like the other midfielder, I forget who it was, but we can go and check the lineups, but they tucked in much more. And when that Svelge dropped in, it was much more like a 5 and a 3, and then it was like two banks of 3 centrally here, with Strain being quite narrow, and then I say Ferry off the ball being allowed to just come out to the touchline a bit more, just to have a bit more space to receive, and then play on the line with a winger. Well, if they do have Middleton, that won't... I'm sure he'll still do this. Middleton, I'm sure he'll still come in quite narrow, don't get me wrong. Same with Trapinowski, depending on what side of the pitch the ball's on. But it's not the same as having like another, like Luke Stevenson, Docherty, and then whoever the other guy was, to say, I forget. Because, yeah, they've just got a bit more pace and space. But I fancy us to do it. And again, like looking at the front line here, if this is how deep and how narrow the banks are, as much as I do think, like, for getting the job done, putting on a show for the boys, all the travelling fans that'll be going, Jota Kuna Maeda is the way to go. As I say, I do think the most likely thing is we see him start Adam Ida again. James Forrest gets the legend maker match, as it were. Oh, sugar. Gave him the Ida treatment there. Ida 9, brought to you by Apple. And then that would put Dyson on the left. I think this is much more likely the position we're going to go in this way. Just can't wait for the media to call us boring again. Yeah, like, it's only boring if you're not enjoying it, which sounds like a stupid thing to say, right? But the only people, it's the haters, it's hate mail. That's all it is. That's what we should be calling it. Hate mail, not the Daily Mail or whoever wrote it. I don't know. But it's just sour grapes, and it's just pure revealing, it's just how people can, especially people that might be in journalism and being somewhat level-headed, or, I know some of them do outwardly hold the clubs they support and stuff like that, but they're still reporting stuff. Like, if they want to do that, they should make their own blooming account. It's not a newspaper then. It kind of diminishes the whole point of the idea, the premise of the thing in the first place. I suppose we're very far down that road at this point, and it's probably a conversation for another place and time. But yeah, with Dyson on this side, I think that just puts a bit more extra emphasis on Alistair Johnson's potential to maybe influence this match as well, because similar to Taylor being the overload, Alistair Johnson does a great job of that, but it's more in this kind of wider channel, and it's a bit more obvious the kind of job he does there. Not quite as, maybe not ingenious is the word, but what would the word be? It's just much more of a gambit, just much more of a wild card element. We normally see it like at the very last minutes of matches and stuff like that, where teams go to the centre back, like you're just going up front. It's that kind of level of like throwing the kitchen sink at it. But because it's done in such a well rehearsed and controlled way, it's obviously very effective and doesn't really cost you too much in the grand scheme of things. Whereas Alistair Johnson's kind of overload, kind of penetrate and run element is a bit more obvious, where he either gives an overlap and run to allow the winger, mainly Kuhn in that situation, to come inside, although Forrest can come inside very well. And I've noticed as well over the last 3 or 4 years, Forrest was very right-footed. And I think under Angel, around that time when he got his new contract, he played on the left a few times, and it looked like he really put a lot of effort into his left foot. And we really see that now. Rodgers has played him on the left-hand side a few times, and his delivery with his left foot isn't terrible, by the way. So even in any case, him coming in on his left is something that Dundee United maybe think they can, we'll just show Forrest inside his left foot's not the same as his right. But it can still be dangerous enough. And if the other players are really on their heels and breaking into the right spaces and get the right delivery, then that overlap and run, although basic, is like still effective, of course. Never mind the ones where he actually gets the nice wee kind of balls where, those passes that get dropped into like this kind of area here, and they feel like, oh, that's going to go out, that's going out, and the run needs to come from quite a clever position to make it. Alistair Johnson's very good at getting on the end of them. Very good at just motoring, going up that gear, finding the cross. And again, the Jota goal where Kuhn kind of knocks it down the line. That's exactly the sort of ball we get across for Jota to smash it in. And again, very good route to go for us. McGregor scoring in the semi-final. Again, I think this is a match where McGregor's going to be edge of the box and he's going to have license to shoot. And I think Hatate loves these types of games, to be honest with you. In tight spaces, quick 1-2 stuff where it can really like unfurl his feathers and just try everything. And there's less of a, maybe more opportunity for success because he's got a lot of players in support. But like, because it is so crowded, like if it does come off, he's maybe a little bit less guilty of losing the possession, as it were, because people do love to get on his back quite quickly. But in these ones where it is a bit more high octane and there is much more, let's say, just more traffic, I think he's quite comfortable in those high traffic areas is probably the best way of putting it. So yeah, I like the way this game is shaping up, and it is just going to be like counter attack into these types of spaces if they are going to get away from us. Yeah, and I say that's without scouting Dundee United beyond what we normally do here on the channel. It's not like we've got the opportunity to go and actually watch them in person and go and plan this out weeks ahead of time and all the rest of it. But I like to think our previews here are pretty spot on. We nailed the score prediction on the last one. I think Ida's going to start. I think this is going to be the team that we go with because of ultimately the pattern of selection that we've seen already from the manager. What he's kind of said pre-match, especially about Forrest, and I think what we've seen in the cup the cup game at the weekend, that we want Forrest to get his goal. We want Forrest to break that record. He does get minutes in the team. You can still play Dyson, who's still the man. And then, like, let's be real, Jota and Kuhn on from the bench is like, like what an expression of strength. Like really, like that. It's a great double sub to just do 60, 70 minutes, whatever you want to, whenever you want to pull that rabbit out the hat. Like, no matter what the game situation is, it's just a huge move at that stage, even if you are changing the midfield around a little bit. Or maybe even Kenny could come on for Ida at some point. You never know. I doubt it, to be honest with you, maybe a wee bit more in this match because it is like getting the job done. And I think like McKeown will get his chance to get on the pitch, as well as Jota and Kuhn, of course, for free subs. Who else? Bernardo, maybe. I don't see him subbing a defender. Maybe Ralston could make an appearance in a game like this. BR says there will be changes or he's at it. Is that in terms of the summer? Yeah, so some of his comments recently have been quite, but I think like they've been quite clear, quite direct, which we love to see from the manager. We love to hear his fans just exactly what he's thinking and feeling. For the most part, we understand it can't be like completely transparent, but we get as much of that as we possibly can. And you know, I really enjoyed the press conference this week off the back of that because it just makes me think like we're pushing the boat out, we're going for it, and like, yeah, what an expression of strength in terms of what we've got from the bench in this match. I want to see more Bernardo. Yeah, like I've got no harm to Bernardo, but I think he didn't look too happy on the bench the other day, did he? Had a bit of it. His face was tripping him a wee bit, so he's probably very hopeful to get minutes, but the manager wants to blast across the line. You know, Brendan loves his record, and what manager doesn't? What coach doesn't? You know, so they want to score as many goals as possible. They want to win as many games as possible. And yeah, I think it's going to be a very predictable match, this one. Did Dundee United get a goal? I don't think so. I think we get a clean sheet in this one. Yeah, I'm not too worried about them on the counter attack, to be quite honest with you. Really, regardless of trust their scales and all that caper, I'm not worried about it. I think Sinisalo is due a good clean sheet. The goal that Kilmarnock pardon me, St Johnson get chopped off, I beg your pardon, at Hampden was an absolute curler. And that boy get robbed big time of a memory. You know, laws of the game and all that stuff, right? Fair enough, whatever. But Sinisalo, I think he'll probably want to earn a bit of a clean sheet in this one. And I know he's going to say the Raith Rovers game because we mentioned that last week. But I'm saying it again. Like, I think he's going to want to. He has earned his medal, make no mistake about it. But, you know, a good match where he can make a couple of good saves, keep a clean sheet. Because Dundee United's maybe good for like 2 shots on target in a game like this, maybe 3. And he'll be called upon. Never mind set pieces and corners he's going to need to claim and clear and everything else. So, yeah, I don't think they score. So I think Celtic are going to win this game to 0. And with the kind of form we showed in the cup game at the weekend, with the strength we've got for full 90 minutes, and it feels like the manager, if you look at the last couple of games, scoring a lot in the first half has been back on the menu. And it feels like the manager wants a game of 2 halves. He wants a blockbuster scoreline. Tannadice has been that venue for us in the past. And I'm going to go with another 6-0, guys. I'm going to go for it. 2 on the bounce. It could be bigger. It could be better. Now, Walton is a good keeper. They are going to be very defensive. That might sound a bit disrespectful to the old Dundee United, but sincerely, like, we're going to get 10 shots at goal. I don't think there's much disputing that. And I think the form the players are on at the moment, I can imagine more of them going in than not. So that's kind of ultimate. I'm going for another blockbuster scoreline. And I just think that it's easy just to copy and paste from the last one and use that as the excuse. But I think we're scoring over 3 goals in this game. I don't think we're conceding any. And ultimately, I think it's going to be a real game of 2 halves. I think that's going to be a big thing the manager's going to want to see in this match, is a real crescendo to a lot of the progression that we've seen this year. Because throughout this season, it has been a game of 1 half, first half or second half. Take your pick. And the way the squad's been kind of optimised and managed, 1 game a week, etc., the front line, the potential from the bench, the dynamic of Scales and Taylor back on the pitch, I just don't see any room in error really here. I think we've got too much quality all over the place. And it could be up there with one of our best games of the season, you know. It's funny because I mentioned it before, and I'll kind of mention it quietly again just now, but I did apply for that job you all sent me. So cross our fingers and toes for that one. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not really holding my breath on it, if I'm honest with you. But I'm a very much a shoot your shot kind of guy. And I do think we do a great job on the projections here. That's why we think Brendan Rodgers is in the comment section, because so much of the stuff we talk about, you know, it comes out, it translates through. But when I was doing that, I was kind of looking at the content we've got on the channel to kind of compose a wee bit of a tail of the tape stuff that we've analysed before. And there's not been that many games that we've said, like, is this the best game of the season? There's been a few of them, but there's not been that many. You know, like, I think this could be one of those games, you know, because sometimes they come when it's like, and I don't want to diminish anything that'll happen over the weekend, but when it's like a dead, not a dead game, you know, but it's like, it's a matter of when, not if, really, is the way we all feel about the title. And obviously that kind of bit us on the arse at the St Johnstone game for the kind of lightning in a bottle situation that they caught in that match, with our goalkeeper scoring so early and us having just no ability to find the back of the net on that occasion. But it feels inevitable at this point, doesn't it? You know, and thanks a lot to everyone that kind of gave me a nudge on that one. And like I say, like, you know, we'll an experience more than anything. I hate the rigidity of always playing 4-3-3. We should play. You know, that's one thing that has been frustrating this year, has been the lack of strategical alterations, because it's It's like the St Johnstone game. It's like some of the games where it's really, if you can have a game, let's say we wrap up the title when we've got the derby match, right? Outside of that, like maybe one or two of the matches, could we try something different? And if we can play a full match with a slightly different tactic, it's nice to have a move like that up your sleeve, to have really well, a good level of proficiency with for the last 10 minutes of a must-win game, for the last 15 minutes of a game in Europe or a cup match or a league game like against St Johnstone, where you just are chapping at the door and you need to do something different to unlock the team. And sometimes Rodgers has made subs in a sequence where you end up with like extra forwards and stuff like that before they later on revert to the shape. Like the comment was saying here from Terence Pat. And because we don't really deploy that kind of thing that often, it is just kind of like, for lack of a better expression, unrehearsed, I suppose. So it doesn't really click as much as you would hope it would in those moments where you do just have extra attacking players on the pitch. So it would be nice. Yeah, something like a diamond. Yeah, okay, that could work. Something like that. I wouldn't mind seeing, like, in this kind of vein, like if you're talking about the back three, so something like this, and somebody like Tierney could evolve into a position like this, like Tierney and AJ either side of any centre back you want to name. Feels like a really good back three if you had the rest of the team kind of built out well for it. And again, if you're just going overkill against a team like Dundee United, you're playing like Dyson on the left, probably go with anyone you want on the right. Or you could even go like Kuhn, Jota, and then Dyson and Nita. You could just really turn it up a notch and go mad attacking. Let me just display that so you can see what I'm saying here. For this type of game, if you just know you're going to get like all the possession in the world, or like again, if you're thinking about what you're rehearsing for, the final like 10 minutes of a game where you're not winning, like what's wrong with this? What is wrong with that? Monty, good to see you. Just absolutely go for it. So it's that like a 3-3-4. And yeah, you could bring Bernardo into this and maybe have a bit more defensive cover or whatever. But like we should have a moment where like that's a move we could use, really, like, because you never want to take Dyson off, really. And no disrespect to Yang or Forrest, but if you're ever bringing them on for Jota or Kuhn, you are losing a bit of magic and gaining a bit of industry. It's kind of that exchange you've got there. And sometimes you need industry, don't get me wrong, right? But having the option to just optimize the magic men a bit more, I think, is always something to explore. And the job you're getting with the midfield three and like this back three. Like if you told AJ just to hang fire a wee bit and back free this up a bit, CCV on the sweeper job, like that could be a wee move that we could develop. Maybe it's just a wee bit pie in the sky. Who knows? 4-4-2 diamond. Yeah, lots of interesting kind of suggestions from you guys. The live chat on this channel is always on fire, guys. Great suggestions as always. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's true. And we do kind of transform the team through that's kind of the method now, isn't it? Is start with the canvas here, and then like you let Taylor and Scales and Johnson kind of take up different positions, and it does kind of morph, doesn't it, throughout the game? So that is kind of the MO at the moment, isn't it? Strange Love the Doctor. So it's a good canvas in that regard. I agree. Whereas other shapes are kind of a bit more limited. You can't really do that kind of thing. So you're never going to like slide Kuhn into right back and go into a traditional back four. If you've got him and Dyson or him and Jota in the wide areas, you're certainly not dropping Jota into left back in a traditional 5 or 4, are you? So yeah, it is pretty good in that sense. But I do think I think everyone feels that there's space in the squad for something that is a back three. I think everyone has that kind of feeling in the back of their head somewhere that could we do, and ultimately it's to get 2 up top as well, isn't it? So it's how do you do the middle? That's kind of what everyone is. That's what stops it happening probably. Ida double tomorrow. Yeah, I can see Ida score. I say I'm going for 6-0 on this one. And in terms of how I see man of the match going, so what we always mean on this channel, we're talking about man of the match, is like who's going to write the headlines on the day. And Forrest has very much got a good shout for doing it because of the legendary kind of status of all the goals and titles and different seasons and all that kind of stuff. But I think this could be a really big game for someone like Dyson or Hatate. I think Hatate especially because he's looked so extra slick. So I've tried to, this is like 5-a-side fantasy football. So I've tried to get like a lot of midfield action in because I think like there's going to be a lot of touches of the ball. Decent wee price on here, $2,000 at the very top. Top 150, we're bringing in some cash. These three teams are all looking pretty good. And I have to have a team with Captain Jota because he just does. But yeah, I think I fancy Hatate to do really well. I've tried to play him in the better teams, and I've got a wee cheeky Hatate as a defender. So if we keep a clean sheet, that's just a wee cheat code of a card, essentially. But yeah, I think this is like Hatate's day. Again, it could be Taylor's day because he's kind of having that kind of swan song element again, been back in the team, being reappreciated. If he is going to sign the new contract as well, it could be an extra like signing on bonus essentially in terms of like just vibes and delivery on the pitch, which is good fun. And then I kind of lose Celtic cards by the time I get to this team where I'm playing guys from Italy and Russia and stuff like that. A wee Boyle team, which is fun. And I've put a wee team together of Jota and Kun just in case they both do start or they both come off the bench and absolutely kill it. Same as Ida and Forrest. I've paired them together in a wee team in case they kind of link up and have a wee bit of magic. So I've tried to cover kind of all the bases. And then, yeah, these teams are all kind of got nothing good on for them. So, yeah, nice wee bit of fun for me over the weekend. Let's hope the goals rain in. Let's hope the clean sheets hang in tight. And I think, yeah, it's going to be, it's between for me, Hatate or Taylor, who's going to really do it. But I think Hatate needs to be that guy. And I think he wants to be that guy. And I think over the last couple of games, he's really been getting into top gear. And I think this is a sort of match where we can see the best of him. So 6-0 to the Hoops. We did the projected 11s and lay of the tape or projected match output, however you want to think of it as. And yeah, I think Hatate is going to rule the roost. Thanks to everyone who's joined this live, by the way. Fist bumps to you all. And if you've been watching this after we've been live, get into the comment section, leave your receipts on the internet. Let us know your thoughts and feelings, score projections, and all that good stuff ahead of the weekend. If you're traveling to the games, stay out of trouble, stay safe, have fun, of course. Hail to everyone, and enjoy the game at the weekend. Won the Hoops.